Lefty here, switching it up a bit with this video. I'm going to show you how we can flip the casino's house advantage in our favor when playing blackjack. Regular double deck or six deck blackjack has the smallest house edge of less than 1%. And just for comparison, another popular casino game, roulette, has a house edge of 5.3%. That's on a standard American roulette wheel with double zero pockets. Now, before I jump into it, if you don't know how to play blackjack, go learn and then come back to this video, because what I'm going to discuss in this video won't make much sense unless you already know how to play the game. So I'll assume everyone knows how to play blackjack. Everyone has probably heard of counting cards. Counting cards is easy, which I will get into, but you won't win counting cards if you aren't playing perfect basic blackjack strategy. You can Google any chart you want. There's even apps you can use and practice on. Now, the top line in that peach color is the dealer's up card. Along the left side is your hand, which when they intersect is the correct mathematical move you should make for that scenario. Some casinos have different rules, so that's why those green boxes have two options. DH is double down if possible, otherwise just hit. Before I memorized this chart, I used to print them out and bring it with me while playing. You can have it at the table. Some dealers will even tell you what the rule is, but it is best to memorize it. You need to learn what to do for every possible combination of cards, when to split, when to double down, when to hit or stand. And you need to play perfect every hand. There's a right move mathematically for every situation, and you don't deviate from the math. Even if you have that gut feeling, stick to what the chart says. Now, playing perfect basic blackjack strategy won't give you an edge over the house, but it will slightly minimize the house edge, which, as far as casino games go, blackjack already has a really small house edge. Assuming you are playing perfect basic blackjack strategy, we can assume a house edge is 0.5%. That's it, just a 0.5%. But think about how many hands you can play in a short amount of time. So that house edge of a 0.5% can actually add up when compounded over a large sample size. And just to be clear, when I say the house edge is a 0.5%, I'm talking about six deck. Standard rules, the house edge varies a little bit based on some of the rules and how many decks, but six deck has a house edge of 0.62%, which when playing perfect basic strategy goes to around a 0.5%. If you can play two deck blackjack, it does have a slightly lower house edge than six deck. Two deck is slightly below 0.40%. Has less variance, which means the house edge is easier to overcome. Of course, two deck, or what's called double deck, isn't offered as much at casinos, and when they are, they usually, like, the payoff for blackjacks is different, which increases the house edge. But the house edge is a 0.5%, assuming you are playing perfect basic strategy. If you aren't, then the house edge is much higher. There's several reasons why the house edge exists, mainly because the dealer plays last. So if you bust and the dealer busts, the dealer still wins. Now, time is your enemy in blackjack. The longer you play against the house edge, the more likely the math will do its job. Also, it's important to always avoid the exotic bets, which is a name just to describe all the different side bets offered, like perfect pairs, super sevens, match the dealer, or double exposure. These are all like parlays in blackjack, basically. The house edge grows to 10% or sometimes higher when you add in those exotics. Never bet the side bets, never surrender or take insurance. The reason they're offered is because it's good for the house and not for you. Insurance is always a sucker bet, just like cashing out a bet for an early payout in sports betting. The dealer won't have blackjack often enough to make up for the 2-to-1 odds it pays out on insurance. All these options are just more creative or fun ways for you to lose money. Another thing, if you see a table that says 6-to-5 payoffs, don't play there. I'm not going to explain the math, but the house edge soars to almost 2% when the table is 6-to-5 payout on blackjack. What you want to see is the 3-to-2 payoffs. They're harder to find in Vegas, but they are there if you look around enough. The casinos hope players don't even look for this type of stuff and hope the players think every table has the same rules and the payoffs are all the same, but they're not. Now that you are playing regular blackjack, no exotic bets, and using perfect basic strategy, you still have to overcome that 0.5% edge. We can do this by counting cards. There's different card counting strategies. The one I'm going to explain and the one I'm familiar using is just the basic high-low card count. There's level 2 and there's level 3 counts, but in my opinion, the juice isn't worth the squeeze with those counts, or in other words, like they aren't worth the edge you'll gain while making it easier to make mistakes using the more intricate counts. The level 1 high-low card count, if done right, is enough to gain an edge and win while using perfect basic blackjack strategy. Using the high-low count, it's very simple as long as you know how to add and subtract. To count cards, you need to know the value of each card. All the 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s have a value of +1. 7, 8, and 9 have no value. The 10s, all the face cards, jacks, queens, kings, they're all -1. Aces are also -1 too. So when the cards are being dealt, you keep an ongoing count, or what's called a running count. +1, -1, -1, etc. We want a positive count. That's good because that means a lot of low cards, 2 through 6s, have come out of the deck, and it means the deck is heavy with more 10s, face cards, and aces. The dealer must hit when they have 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. A 10 value card will bust the dealer, whereas a low card could allow them to make their hand. The more low cards out of the deck, the better it is for the player. If you dealt out a full 52 card deck or 104 cards, any combination of 52 cards, and ran the count, at the end it will always be 0. But throughout the deck being dealt, the count will fluctuate up and down. Let's go over an example. If this was the first hand you started to play, you would be at a 0 count. The first position with 2 aces would be a count of -2. Middle spot is +1, making the running count now -1. The last position is 0. A king and a deuce cancel each other out. And the dealer is showing a 5, which is a +1. So the count is 0. Pretty simple, right? Of course, it's a lot tougher doing this at a live table, but I like to count in pairs, which just means counting by the slots or shoots or hands when all players have their 2 cards and you just adjust as they take a hit. When you get comfortable with keeping a high-low count, it's helpful to keep a separate count of the total number of cards that's been dealt out, and I'll explain why in a minute. Now, in a standard 6-deck game, each +1 count increases the player's edge by 0.5%. So if you sat down and these were the cards dealt, you'd have a running count of +1. The first slot, 6 and 7, although the real card values equal 13, when counting cards, it's a value of 1 because 6 is +1 and 7 has no value. Middle slot, same thing. So now your count is +2. The third slot, jack is -1, ace is -1 for -2. So that cancels out your +2 running count going into that third slot. The dealer is showing a 2 for a count of +1. The running count, +1. A count of +1 would remove the 0.5% house advantage, and you'd be playing a fair game or flipping a coin, as they say. A running count of +2 will give you the advantage in your favor by 0.5%. The higher the positive count, the better it is for the player. Your bet sizing should increase along with your edge, but keep in mind, a running count of, say, +5, which is good, gives you a 2% advantage, which again is good, but we're still talking about just a 2% edge. Doesn't mean you're any type of big favorite to win the next hand or any hand after that. I've been crushed playing with a running count of +13, mid to late shoe too. Remember, when all the cards are dealt, the count returns back to 0. So having a running count like +13 late in the deck should mean that the remaining cards coming out are stacked with a lot of tens, face cards, and aces. A positive count can mean more when there's fewer cards left remaining in the deck. So keeping an overall count of how many cards have been dealt out is helpful. And that's kind of where the true count comes in, which maybe I'll do a part 2 on, between true count and running count. Looking at the remaining deck in the shoe and being able to tell how many cards are left. There's some real good card counters that can just look at it by eye and judge it. But I just look to kind of get an idea. Is it, half the deck left or less or more? And I do this by looking at the discard rack and try to judge how many decks have been dealt out. And keep in mind, just as a positive count increases your edge, it's the opposite with a negative count. Each -1 count increases the house edge 0.5%. So a -1 running count would mean you're up against a 1% house edge. You should be playing the minimum bet per hand when the count is negative. I personally play the minimum when the count is +1, 0, or any negative number. I don't start increasing my bet size until a +2 or +3 running count, which a +3 count would mean I'd have a 1% edge, and really I'm increasing to $30 on a $25 minimum table bet, which isn't the right bet sizing, and bet sizing correctly is really important, and something I may do in a part 2, but depending on how this video is received. Now, big disclaimer here. Before you run out to the casino and start building your empire of riches, just keep this in mind. What I've explained to you in this video isn't some secret. It's widely available information. It's simple. So why isn't everyone rich from counting cards? Well, for starters, you need massive capital to withstand the variance. In other words, you need money to burn. There's times when you could play for 4 or 5 hours and the count never get higher than +2. So that means you basically just played 4 or 5 hours against the house edge. Also, casinos are really good at defending against any advantage players. They'll use auto card shufflers, the continuous shuffle, which makes counting impossible. You can't count cards if the dealer is shuffling every 5 or 10 hands. Lastly, the casinos have the best card counters working for them in the eye in the sky. So if you're betting minimum bets, and then once the count gets good and you start going 3x, 4x, 5x bets, it's a dead giveaway. I've lost track of so many counts by just pit bosses asking me a polite question or asking for a player card, or the waitress asking me every minute for a drink at the exact times the cards are being dealt. You need to be able to count without looking like you're trying to count, which I personally can't do that good. I don't even bother counting most times. I'll try and keep a loose count and hope it helps me get lucky, but hopefully one of you watching has the skills and characteristic traits of a good card counter, and this can help you win. If so, there's endless free information available online about blackjack. Don't ever pay for anything involving blackjack advice or strategy, because it's all out there for free somewhere. If you found this video helpful or interesting, let me know in the comments section, because maybe I'll do a part 2. But that's all I got for now. If you watched to the end, I really appreciate it. If you've learned anything and could give this video a thumbs up, I would be forever grateful. That's how I grow here. Till next time, good luck with your bets.